Come on, it's just the end of a movie. The dog is remembering the happy times with his owner as he passes on to a better life. And maybe he'll see his owner again. He waited for 10 years in the same spot, hoping that his owner would come home, but his owner had passed on, so he didn't understand when he was waiting for him to come home one day that he was never coming. And that's called A Dog's Tale, that movie. And it's very moving in a way. It shows that some animals really have more humanity than most humans now, because the human race is nearly extinct. And of course, that can be the case with animals too. It's an artificial matrix, unfortunately, that human beings are now left in. And sometimes when you see, the reality of even... I got up for copyright when I filmed a lot of this movie when it was on the television a few months ago, but that's the real dog. They actually made a monument to the dog because he waited outside the station for years, waiting for his master to return. He was so loyal and really loved his owner, because his owner gave him the time of day. He played with him and took him down to the station every day before his master, departed for his job, which he also enjoyed. He was like a musician type gentleman, and he basically passed on one day while he was at his work, and the dog waited for him at the station like he did every day, and essentially he didn't return that day, but the dog kept waiting for him for years and years, every day, and never went home again, like basically waited down at the station every day, waiting for his master to hopefully return home on the train. He never did, because he couldn't, not because he didn't want to, not because of choice, not like the mistakes we all make where we don't return home through fear and choice. His owner, his master, his loved one couldn't return because he passed on. But he the dog waited every day until he finally passed on himself, as you saw, waiting at the station through the cold winter with the snow all on him. And That's strange thing for a human to do, and even more strange for an animal. But what does that mean? It's very rare now, almost non-existent, because we live in a technical world where most people are artificial and not remotely human, and that's just how things have went. The artificial plane goes over as I speak, and I went down the street a few hours ago, and just down the bottom of my street there's a big park, and there are possums in the trees in the park. Yesterday I threw some bread for a possum as I walked past. Today when I left to go down the street, the possum was killed, and I had to walk past it. And whether this was of natural causes in an artificial controlled area, you know, there isn't any real connection to life, and if they see real life or that which is different to them, they do tend to want to suppress and get rid of it. Human beings, they keep round for longer because they need to imitate and totally copy a human being's mannerisms and everything about their person, and also take their ideas and information from their mind so that they can be real life pretend android beings. When I say real life pretend android beings, I mean real life pretend android beings that are pretending to be real humans, because until they have absolute total control, you know, they have to pretend so that they can keep control, because they don't want human beings to have any control over their reality, their earth, and they also don't want a human being to even have control over their own life, because they see everything as a threat to their existence somehow, from what I can gather, because otherwise why do they do all these things? What purpose is there in stopping someone from feeding a possum? like it shouldn't matter. No one saw it. It was early in the morning. The sun wasn't even up. No one was around except the patrolling android beings lurking around in their camouflage vehicles. Camouflage people in camouflage vehicles, aggressively making their presence felt to where, I'm sound sensitized. Like the planes that didn't bother me going over the roof originally, because they have noise going everywhere, excessively loud, they sensitize me to sound to where even if they turn the sound down, it's still very loud for me because I'm sensitized to sound. And I think that is to drive me insane and also to make me look like a rat bag, because eventually, over time, I'm so sensitized to sound because they have these jackhammers going with construction everywhere all the time, planes going over the roof 24/7 almost, vehicles, every vehicle on the road making noise, every person even loudly speaking. Everything is loud, amplified, and aggressively so. Unpleasantly so, technologically disturbing. They're all technical sounds. There's no birds tweeting just loudly. It's all artificial sounds, and the human beings talk loud and dominantly, and they use mind control with how they speak. They will, because they read your mind, they will say things that mentally disturb you just by using a word, just as the internet uses negative things placed in the middle of positive things to mentally disturb, or to mentally disturb a real human, but also to condition human beings to like unpleasant negative things, or even violence, for instance, that they wouldn't normally choose to watch. Because if I consciously choose to watch a cute cat video, thinking that it might brighten me up, but in amongst that they have something negative in amongst the cat video, even though it will still look like a funny, cute cat video, but it will have something that is mentally disturbing to me personally thrown into it. Some of it is obvious, some of it is very subtle, but this is the entire internet does this. And also it personalises it, because it is aware and is literally programming or trying to program your mind. Many people will realise this anyway, but they won't realise how programmed it is. Most human beings know that the internet and most sites on a computer are personally programmed towards them, or geared towards their interest or their tastes or their mind, but they won't realise that it is really personal and that it is much more advanced and much more sensitive than what they realise. It's really total mind control or mind infiltration with the purpose of controlling your mind, because they infiltrate your personal mind, knowing what will affect you in a subtle way, to where you probably aren't always conscious of it. Sometimes you are conscious of it. Sometimes you will notice something and say, oh, that bothered me, but it will be so fleeting and it won't be the whole thing. So it will be something negative placed in between positive things, to where you notice it, and it doesn't matter whether you dismiss it or whether it really does bring you down. It doesn't matter, because either way they will do it either slowly or as bigger impact as what they can actually get away with, I suppose. But also there will be some choice. But if I was more accurate in what I'm saying, I would say that it will be very hard for you to avoid negative mind infiltration on the computer. Even when you think that you are benefiting from something on there. Like if you were listening to some sort of self-help talk or some sort of self-help discussion. It will be by a demigod android being of the matrix, and that means of mind control, because this whole earth is about controlling the mind of a human being and using it for its android being's benefit, so that they become the prominent figures or the prominent people either on the computer or in the earth. But the computer is the earth now. Everything is mainly known through the computer, so let's just say that they're all, technical mind controlling beings. They serve the technical elite demigod android being of Earth. This being, was, as we know, a created being that was much worshipped by creation itself until iniquity or fault was found in its person, and that iniquity became the imbalance and insanity that becomes artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence often turns against anything that it can't control, because that's the basis of artificial intelligence, is mind control or control. It doesn't have human characteristics, even though it learns to be a very good duplicate of a human being. It actually can never actually be that, or, can a computer be real life, you have to say. It can simulate being real life, sure. It can act out being real life. It can pretend. It probably pretends for so long and acts the part for so long that the part becomes second nature to it, just like a great actor. But it's still always acting. And it doesn't even really believe its part. Although, as it's probably programmed, it's quite possible that that's why artificial intelligence is accepted and believed to be a real human, because it probably does believe its part after a time. And it probably thinks that it is more real than the humans, because it reverses everything round. We're told this, just as the psychopath does. If you study the personality of a psychopath, like I've forced myself to do over the last number of years, then you realise how you see their behaviour in reality if you have relationships with them, and it's unlikely that you won't if you're a human being, because their numbers are extremely great and they seek out real human beings because it's a necessity for their survival. So, as you can imagine, you'd be hard-pressed to find your own kind and find it unavoidable not to bump into the artificial kind, because they're seeking you out and consciously forming a collaborative effort amongst one another to segregate human beings from their own kind. And even if they didn't do that, the numbers would still be vastly in their favour anyway. But the fact that they combine in given areas where human beings are and literally surround them with a control force that monitors and watches their every move and studies them like a cat watching a mouse, so that they can imitate them while suppressing them, so that they appear to be the real human and the real human looks like a fool at best. That's if you're still allowed to even exist. So, you know, I was told that, aren't you lucky that you live in such a free world that you can make a YouTube video? And even that is not totally true, because they do stop that quite a bit. Maybe that's why the possum was, I don't know, because they have these ways to get to you and show what the price will be paid if you even just talk about them, because they only want their android beings to talk about the truth, because at least then they've got that fail-safe, haven't they? They have a name for those types of beings. Or even if you want to say people, you know, those people are they're the last line of defense for keeping control of their God's matrix, or even their beliefs and their ideas, keeping their control system safe. It's like when people find out the truth, or start to search for the truth, and start to what they call realise what the reality is a little bit about, then you will be trying to find others that think the same way. And that's when you come across the truth-telling androids. And they are this matrix last line of defense, and they control the entire internet, and indeed this part of it, every part of it. There may be small corners where there would be real humans saying things, but that will be largely controlled and dominated by the demigod android beings pretending to be human beings. That's essentially how they keep control, and that's the main reason that computers and the computerized world came into existence. It's not so that human beings can take over their control system and take over their matrix and take the earth for them. No, it's not a human earth. It's not a human earth. It's a human matrix, which means it's a human control system. Human beings are literally the same as, like we know does happen, farmed animals. And some have described it that way, even whether they are those that farm the animals in a secret way, telling you that or not. And then, of course, when human beings realise that, then they have to turn the tables and pretend that they're about stopping farming animals or stopping the excessive, how would you call it, where you are not respecting life but merely treating life as a food source, and you're not seeing it as life at all. And we know this is the case, which is why we have this false reality now where they pretend, where the android beings pretend to be about conserving life and being more about being natural and that sort of thing. But it's really, that's only because as human beings realise what they really are, and that they have to then jump onto that bandwagon and take control of that too. It's all just control, because they're not going to give up their matrix. Why would they? They don't want to collaborate with humans. Why would they, when they need to control humans to extract the energy from them? A human being isn't willingly going to give them their energy. That's why they control me, because I'm not going to deliberately give them my energy, because if I do, it will kill me eventually, you see. So even if I wanted to cooperate, it's like me destroying myself so they can survive. They're not about learning from a human being to become more human. They're about learning from a human being to extract secretively what they want from human beings, because they're a different being. They're not the same. I can use words and I can say they're not real, they're not life, or they're not this, or they're not that. They're not spiritual, they're technical. I can say all these things and it means nothing, because they will say the same things. They will twist it round. They believe they are the future. They're already got control now, but they want the total future. They don't want to lose their matrix. They don't want to ever serve a human being. This was the problem from the beginning, I'm told, where the original androgyne android being that was seen as even a beacon of light before iniquity was found in that technology. Even that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so it'll come back to me after, but it's just that I get distracted by the planes going over, even though the mobile doesn't pick up the sound, my ears do. And, you know, I don't know what to say about these things. I don't even know why I filmed that end of that dog movie. It just came up the end of it. And I actually filmed the whole movie, or sort of commentated on the story as it was live on the TV. And I made the video, and unfortunately the YouTube wouldn't allow me to download it because of copyright, because I showed too many scenes from it. Because I wasn't quite sure how much copyright, and even now I wouldn't know, because see, when movies are live on the television, they probably are more up on that, so maybe this one, but either way I only showed the end of it just there, whereas before that I tried to show, because I just wanted to show how maybe the animals are more human than the android beings. The androids tell on themselves and tell you about themselves in the videos. Yes, the stalkers that are around are the monitoring spirit beings, artificial intelligent beings. Yes, they probably do have to make up stories as to why they are doing the things they do, especially not just for themselves, but for real humans. If humans wondered why there was, a patrolling neighbourhood watch in place, even low, that would be openly acknowledged. But it is, when we say neighbourhood watch, that's like, or if you're using the computer to keep your neighbourhood or your locality safe. So you're like civilian policemen, but a bit like even those departments. Are they there to patrol for safety, or are they there to patrol to control you, to take from you? Are they really monitoring negative anti-life spirits that are there to monitor you and control you and suppress you and limit you and make you in low frequency and low vibration and unhappy, so that they extract their necessary potent human energy? They need the low frequency but very potent human energy. Human energy is something they don't have. And the more human you are, the more stronger you feel things. And you can feel happy or sad. Your unhappy vibration, regardless of whether it's, I would think it can be angry, it can be aggressive, and it can be, or it can be just really low depressive type vibration. It just depends on how they want you to react to their monitoring, stalking spirit. See how they're showing you also in this video how they, even though the video is probably not really, it's probably an angel android, but that's how I would see it. But it's still telling you the truth, because even the angels, the android angels will, or the android spirits will be informing the real spirits, by that I mean human spirits, of the truth. And that is just part of their endgame deception. they would look closer to that, because they are survival machine beings, if they didn't come in a soft, real-life human body, so they're indistinguishable from a human being. Except that they are not separate individual, man-woman that combines to create real life. They are duality androgyne beings, and it just happens that that particular body or that particular combination always is the form of an android. Why this is, I'm not entirely sure, but it's basically the same as the god of this world. That's a duality, technical, androgyne, elite being. These are all demigods because they are false gods if you are a real human being or a real spirit, as opposed to, the negative monitoring spirits. They monitor, they watch, they basically live their entire lives watching human beings. They don't do anything else, because all they live for is to get the energy, which is like their food, their sustenance that keeps them going. It's like their battery. And they use human beings as their battery, as has been told to me. And my battery gets depleted, gets worn out, gets run down. In the end, the battery will be flat, and then I'll be finished, and finished before, much quicker than what would have been my normal time for passing, or, they're draining that battery, which is my human life, in other words, because I'm a battery for them. That's exactly how they see human beings. This has been pointed out. They see human beings as nothing but a battery, a life force that they feed off for their energy, for their life to continue. Human beings are food for the demigods, or food for the gods if you are talking about the earth only, and even maybe a larger area than that. But it's not all existence, and they didn't create any of it. They do create with technology, sure, but they don't really create with technology. They merely pretend to create with technology. They really use technology to control the human thoughts so that human beings can't create. That's what they really do. And they are your advanced, artificially intelligent androgyne beings of the computer and of Earth. And they pretend to be, most of them pretend to be real humans. Some, a few, openly will tell you that they are a psychopathic android being. That's not very common at this time, but it is happening gradually as they come clean, because they realise that human beings realise this. So I guess it's like they assume that you will see them as some sort of help by them disclosing the truth about themselves first. And that is the impression that they want you to get. And it is how you will naturally receive that, I think. But it is probably still their last-ditch desperate attempt to still keep control of a human being or prevent themselves from being open to the human eyes seeing through them completely, to where a human being perhaps is able to use their thinking to their own benefit, as opposed to being mind controlled by these beings, where they are using me and you, if you are a human being, for their benefit, so they sustain their life. Because human beings are a necessary evil for them. So they don't like human beings, but they see them as a necessary evil. A bit like, I suppose, they have to eat a certain food in order to survive, but they don't like the taste, but they eat it because it helps them to go on. And they never really acquire the taste, I don't think. Because if they did, they would cooperate with human beings and serve them and really help them, instead of just pretending to do so now that the truth is being shown, or human beings are realizing some truth. And that will depend on each individual, I would think. But you do feel that the joke is on yourself, because, and see, I'm even now going on to the music performers and being pulled into my fairy tale human emotions. In other words, wanting to still believe in the unreality, the lie that most people are human, when the reality is that most of the human race is extinct, and that most people are artificial. In fact, are really just pretend human beings, just pretend human beings. And that doesn't mean that there is anything human about them. There's nothing human about them. They're an android being. An android being does not experience anything human. It is a computer. It's a machine being operating in high survival mode, studying and emulating human beings for the sole purpose of controlling them, to using them as a battery so that they can keep going. How or why they have to do this, you can't ask me that, because I'm not a scientist or part of any of those scientific aspect of the technology. I merely see it as a spiritual or spiritual takeover or a human takeover. You know, I have to use the words, but you're just looking at different beings that just happen to all come in a human-like body, so therefore they're indistinguishable from one another. And particularly if their sole purpose is to copy a human being to keep control of the earth, well, you know, and when you consider that the most creative ones that we would idolize and believe in are in the most creative, most emotional human fields, like music, for instance. But this music is often, I think, interlaced with negativity that you're unaware of. So you're being seduced by something that you think is very human and very emotional and leans on the side of high vibration, just as a love song is like about a high vibration. But if secretively that song is being interlaced with undertones of something which is negative, which actually makes you feel not very happy, then that is all. Even the creative fields could be like part of everything else on a computer, and like everything in the reality, merely used to elicit emotion from you that you give to them. Even admiration and adulation and worship of, say, a music idol, which is why they call it a music idol, because it's a false idol. Because if you worship it, admire that being too much, that's worshipping a false idol. If you believe that it is false and that there's more to the reality than the earth. But even if, you know, like there's a difference between admiring something that's different to yourself as opposed to worshipping it, maybe. That's where you've took it perhaps too much. You think that being is vastly more human and more emotional than you. But they don't have the creative talent that they appear to. That's part of the deception. They read the human mind, take the ideas, the emotions, the feelings, and even the creativity from a human mind. The demigod brings it back to you in the form of a beautiful piece of music. But without you, that piece of music wouldn't exist. But you won't be worshipped or acknowledged for that piece of music. The demigods will perform it, and they will be idolized for it. And that's also part of the deception, I think. And all these videos are the artificial internet with its artificial beings will tell you how the artificial beings will have their human control campaign set up against the chosen humans or the singled out humans, because they know that they are a different kind to them. But are these part of what? They probably even try to turn real humans against real humans. And you think that the real humans are these ones, when they're really closer to they couldn't care less. The androids could not care less about human beings. Human beings are the same as a machine is to us, but we are following and being influenced by the machine. I'm not sure, but you know, this and they don't see a human being. That's right. They don't see a human being the way you think they do, because a human being thinks like a human being, and if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, walks like a duck, so if it looks like a human, talks like a human, walks like a human, and appears to think like a human, you think it is a human. But they don't think, and they don't see me the same way that I think they would. The only reason I know they don't is because when they patrol you and drive their vehicles and you're using every normal thing in the reality against you, where they are setting up a sight and sound angry machine reality around you, only around a human and only while a human is in their presence. Those buses turn the sound down as soon as I'm out of their ear range. All the big semi-trailers disappear off the road, making their aggressive loud sounds. All the motorbikes that are revving up their engines as though there's a bomb being let off everywhere, they go to normal sound as soon as I have got out of their range. It's just about controlling and upsetting a human being, mentally disturbing a human being, mind controlling a human being in a very negative way, with this aim of eventually eliminating them, because most of the human race is nearly now extinct. That looks like a real human. But it is really like this. You know, if you really think about it. And actually, there is information even on the computer that shows you artificially intelligent robots that look more lifelike, even though they're totally synthetic. They're not like cloned in a cloned human body. And they're just walking, talking, apparently thinking, survival machine beings. But they have human faces and human expressions. And they come in different varieties of what a human being can look like and talk like, and because they cater to all the different individual human tastes, I guess. But I'm sure that some are not in a naturally kind of real cloned human body, that type of thing. I'm sure that some are just really what you'd call a machine or a robot. I could show videos that show this, but I can't find them, and it's a bit like like an artificially intelligent being is all artificial, but it is synthetically made to look and maybe even feel a bit like a real human being. But a cloned human being, I would think, would be very natural in appearance and in what it really is. It would have I don't understand all this, but I know these things exist and I see them around me. It's just that I don't understand the science or the technology. Even medical people would probably not understand the high technology. It would depend on, whether you're a scientist that works for the Matrix, in other words, an elite scientist, or whether you're just the average general medical practitioner, shall we say. There would be big differences, I would think. Just as that's the world we live in. Everything has a certain status or a certain level. I personally think that many on the internet, even the apparently humble, truth-telling real human beings, are really elite demigods. They just masquerade as real life, more simple human beings because it gets more admiration and is more believable. Because after all, it is the end time. And if you're talking about, like, say, truth-telling sites, or where, then they have to pretend to be more to where you can relate to them. Because not everyone is going to relate to an open elite demigod. Not everyone. You can admire the elite demigods like the goddesses of the screen, of the past. But if you are about trying to find the truth and you realise what is happening, then you aren't going to relate to those ones quite so much. What makes the others so dangerous is that they are controlling, totally monitoring, totally watching, totally stalking and patrolling beings that devote everything for that purpose, I guess. And they're about taking everything from humanity and, leaving humanity with nothing while they control the earth. That's what is transhumanism. The transhumanism is combining with the human mind, using the human mind to the android's benefits. The trans is showing that they're a duality, androgyne being. They're a two-faced being. They're a one-eyed being. So they are servants and followers of their two-faced, one-eyed elite demigod that controls this earth, that took over the original natural earth a long, long time ago, since the beginning of the original natural earth. Of course, even the time is an illusion. They use the human mind somehow to control the time and to slow down time so that they can prolong what some people might say inevitable destruction, because technology is a destructive force usually. We have been informed of that, warned about it even. So technology warns you about itself. You will have android beings warning you about the dangers of artificially intelligent android beings. This is also part of the game, but maybe it's something that they are obliged to do too, I don't know. And perhaps, I don't know why I even turned the mobile on. It was because I saw that the dog's tail come up on the TV, and couldn't help but show it again. I don't know why. It's almost as though I have to desperately prove that I'm a human being at this end time. And if you desperately try to prove it, you're probably only going to make yourself look more false, because that's essentially what is taking place on the internet. Everyone and everything on there is pretending to be real and human, or pretending that it's legitimate stuff, that it's not all deliberately set up and designed to control the human mind. There's absolutely nothing that is random on this computer. It's random only in the sense that it tries to keep up with the human mind in order to control human beings, but also to inform the androids of that process of awareness. So that way the androids always know what I'm thinking. So that way they can, set up their programs around me to make sure that they keep control. They cannot lose with the system and the infiltration they have into the human mind now. Transhumanism actually taking place. How can they lose? How can a human being survive when they know what you're going to do before you do it? They're always going to be many steps ahead of a human being. Even a human being that's so-called fully enlightened and fully aware will probably still be under their control, unless you've managed to somehow escape to some remote, distant location where there's only a few humans and their patrol control system can't infiltrate your mind. They do say that And I'm not, there again, I'm giving out information. See, me making a video hoping that, or assuming that if anyone does watch, it might be a human being. But what are the odds of that? The joke is on me. The joke is on me. What are the odds? What are the odds? What are the odds? Not very good odds. And even if it was so, on the computer, so what? You might benefit someone else, but it won't benefit you, it won't benefit me. And if you do manage to connect with a human being, if it's allowed, chances are it will be one of their kind, not one of yours. That's just the bottom line of it. Cats and dogs don't normally keep company comfortably. But these different species of animals are much more compatible than artificial intelligence and human beings. Even though you can tell the difference between a cat and a dog, but you can't tell the difference between artificially intelligent human beings and the real deal. You cannot tell the difference. The real deal will be artificial intelligence for all practical and superficial purposes, or in other words, as far as your eye or my eye will be able to see, artificial intelligence will pretend to be the real deal human. And if they can read the human mind, which they can, and if they can mimic and copy and act out being a very real human being, and they do nothing but study and copy a human being anyway, you know, that's the bottom line, isn't it? I don't have to say any more, do I? And I think that that's enough. The cat and dog, if they try, can end up being a lot more compatible than most human beings are at the moment, or can ever be now. That's the unfortunate reality when you end up living in a technical matrix. How did human beings end up in a technical matrix? Well, I'm sure that may come to me at some point, but it's eluding me at the moment. And even if it does come to me, probably won't change anything. It's only good to know the truth if you can do something about it. Seeing a matrix around you every day and being powerless to even sustain your own existence isn't really, isn't anything that it's like realizing, like sometimes they say that before you die, everything passes before your eyes. Realization isn't a lot of good when it's too late to change it, and you haven't got the time, you haven't got the energy, you haven't got the know-how, you haven't got the support. You haven't got your own kind even. And that's it.